Instead, you went for the lead. Take me inside that decision-making of that three ball.
I receive a lot of negative criticism because I never go for the tie. I heard Gilbert Arenas not too long ago say, I'm ready, I'm trying to go home, so I'm going for the game every time.
This right here is what happens when Anthony Edwards gets a crack of daylight in transition.
Got up for the downstroke.
Yeah, pure destruction, right? Well, this is what happens when you take that same dominance inside and transfer it into lethal sniping. Listen, for years, the scope on Anthony Edwards was simple. He's an elite guard, get him in the open floor, and it's over. But if you make him work in a half court set against a locked-in defense, he'd settle a little bit. But now, that scope on Ant is just totally wrong. And it's not wrong because he can't get out in the open floor and cause damage, but simply because it's outdated. Last season, Ant put up 28 points a night on 61% true shooting, while knocking down shots from any and everywhere on the floor. And in today's video brought to you by PrizePicks, we're going to show you exactly where that old scouting report broke down and why any defender that steps in front of him is up for a major challenge. Now look, we all love that Ant can give us highlight plays with him being a freak athlete. And when speaking of freak, I want you to think about Giannis for a second. Early on, the scope on Giannis was quite simple as well. He was just a raw athlete who could get to the rim with brute force, so things worked out. But over the years, we've seen that even if he doesn't have a head of steam and has to work in that half court, he has moves in his bag that he can use to still outbeat defenders. When things like this happen, it can all out break defenders as they're used to one thing, and now they have no clue what to watch out for or even how to stop it. When talking about Edwards, his game is still rooted in that attacking playstyle, but instead of that being the main and only base, it's now just the jump starts of things. If Edwards is pushing at you and you don't stand your ground or get help to make sure he can't get all the way inside, well, this is what ends up happening.
Edwards, count it, and put him on the line.
Plays like that get the juices flowing and the confidence up. So now when you do actually stand your ground, he can use the handle to shift you slightly to work past. And if your big is right there ready to help, well, this is where that bag gets shown off even more, as Ant uses that smooth Euro around Queen and lays this in with ease. Usually when you have guys who thrive in transition, they can tend to play at one speed when going down the floor to hopefully beat everyone, but with Edwards, things are more calculated. On this play, he could take the outside angle to get to the cup, but this would allow Kata to potentially track it down for a block while Ant's defender rides his hip. So instead of that, Ant decides to attack right through the middle of both of them to use his speed to his advantage to go score. See, the speed was a factor and it always will be, but Ant makes sure to use it at the right time. Like when there's a little less than 5 seconds on the clock and Edwards catches it not even past half court, this is where he has to turn on the Jets to beat the entire Nuggets team to the basket. But then other times, he may use that slight hezzy to make the defenders freeze for a split second, and through all types of hand swiping at the ball, he still manages to complete this slick reverse. This here is what can leave a defense broken, as these plays shift momentum in the opposing team's favor, and with Ant not just being a downhill threat anymore, he can use this against defenders by selling a drop to then stop on a dime. And I know that the space isn't massive between him and the defender, but once he's locked and loaded, this right here is straight cash. Having the skill set to be so versatile like this is what makes Ant one of the most difficult covers in the league, and why his new red card on my website will be one of the best in the game with limited redemptions, because what we just covered was mainly what he was known for when referring to his downhill pressure, but now there's a skill set he's developed that makes him simply unguardable. I know a lot of people don't see the value in it, and the analytic nerds will call for it to be removed from the game, but the mid-range is where we see Ant be the most creative, the most unpredictable, and leads to improving every other aspect of his game. As most defenders are ready for him to drive, or uptight on him ready for a pull-up from deep, it's in that in-between area where he can have his way with them. This certainly wasn't a skill set that defense had to worry about with Ant early on, and I'm sure most people didn't really see it coming. While many thought his driving and dunks would paint the picture completely, it's actually his shot creation that has took his game to the next level. It can start off all the way basic, where Ant simply getting to a spot to then rise up over the top of the defender, but then it ranges all the way to Edwards using the handle to break down a defender to then drop it in. Now look, both of those look simple, but when you see the layers that he covers with his creation in this area, that's when you truly start to sit up in your seat. Let's say the defense commits hard to stopping him on the attack and just forgets about Gobert rolling to the rim. Well, Ant can use the physicality paired with the footwork to create space with his spin back, and now you just have to watch it fall through the basket. Other times, it can be so calculated that you miss why it's important that he made the move. As right here, Tamani is shading Ant towards the middle. Now most of the time, you don't want to send a great slasher to their dominant hand, but when you look at the defense, you can see that Drew Holiday is ready to jump the gap on the drive, and Klingon is sitting right in the paint waiting. So an attack towards the middle right now is actually a case of everything that glitters isn't gold. So that's why Ant spins off Tamani to attack baseline to then bury the jumper.
Edwards.
These spin moves can be a go-to for Ant to avoid tight pressure situations, but trust me, that's not the only way he can evade defenders. As when the pressure is on and he has to take on the matchup himself, he'll use his strength that we touched on earlier to move Castle back, and although the crowd wanted an offensive foul, they instead just have to watch more points go on the board. I mean, let me ask you all this. What do people really want? Do they want physical basketball back in the game, or do they want to keep complaining about it being a cheating tactic? Like, I get it. I understand that people hate this move, especially when they see guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doing it, as it can look like something that grants an unfair advantage for the offensive player. But in my eyes, I just say weight room. Basketball has always been a physical sport, and when you need to create space, initiating the contact while stepping back just maximizes the space creation, and this right here is pure butter. Now hold on, before people get mad at it, just know that this isn't something Ant has to lean on or does so a lot of the time. When you actually dive deep, his creation in this area will mainly be due to his ability to handle the ball and make a move before the defense can even react quick enough. But before we dive deep into that, we have to hear a word from our sponsor. If you know you can play responsibly and have the means to do so, PrizePicks is the #1 app for sports picks. When you go to PrizePicks, you'll see many different sports to choose from, along with many different categories to select picks. It's pretty easy. All you do is pick more on a player's stats or less, and it puts them in your lineup. And if you want, PrizePicks now offers team picks where you either pick the winner, spread, or total and simply lock it in. Here's how simple it is to add picks for a lineup. For example, Breanna Stewart for more than 22 points, yeah, let's lock that in. Kelsey Mitchell for more than 16 points, let's get this one as well. And then after going through and locking in more picks, I can finalize my lineup, sit back, and let the magic happen. And the greatest part about this is that PrizePicks is available in over 40 states, including California, Florida, and Texas. And if you sign up for PrizePicks with code HMA, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. That's right, PrizePicks just switched up their offer. So lock in, win that first lineup, and that's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. So either download the app or click the link in the description to get started. Now, like I said, Ant can get into a shot quicker than the defense can be up on him to take away the jumper, and this is what gives him the upper hand most of the time. For example, he can attack hard to then snatch back even harder, and since he gathers into the pull-up quickly off the handle, the defense's contest simply doesn't even matter. When he catches on the move to attack again, Watson is on his backside funneling him into Jokic, and this puts him at the mercy of Edwards. Because all it takes is one abrupt move to establish some distance, and at this point, you're just not stopping the shot. Yeah, it can all out look so simple, but in reality, it's because he's always one step ahead of his defender. This ability to get to his spots no matter what the coverage is leaves him getting into a flow state, and trust me when I say it, that's when we get some of the cleanest shots put on display. Such as when Hunter is on him, Edwards will use that saucy handle to then flow into a step back over the top. When the defender is thinking the spin off is coming, that's where staying ahead of them comes in handy, as Ant used that half spin to fool the defense before knocking it down. And when the bag is just fully activated, just stay out of his way. This here is truly where things get dangerous for the defense, and where that old scope of him being just a slasher has now gone down the drain. Edwards is a certified shot creator on the floor, and it doesn't just stop in the mid-range either. I'm sure not many people expected Ant to shoot the ball so well, as last season on 8.4 3-pointers per game, Ant knocked these down at a 40% rate, which is absurd. Pretty much, if you left him open, he was knocking it down. And hey, even if he wasn't open at first and needs to create space, he certainly had no problem doing so. Me and you both know that his driving is just exceptional, so defenders always have that in the back of their mind when guarding him. A simple gather off the handle that looks like a drive will make a defender bite hard, which then sets them up for a snatchback, and bada bing, you already know it's money team. Other times, it doesn't even have to be a snatch or space created. Like sure, he used this step back to get away from Grant, but if we're all seeing the same thing, Grant is right over him with a solid contest. But remember, to an elite sniper, you can't let him see the daylight or else you're gonna pay for it. This here's what makes defenders feel helpless when they're on the floor, because on one hand, you don't want to get beat to the basket as that's not a great look, but then how do you balance out getting beat when you're on an island like this versus biting hard when he serves the handle to then fire it up from deep? I know, I'm saying the same thing. It's really no correct way to guard them, as usually when guys are elite shooters, they don't tend to be elite drivers as well. But when you're talking about Ant-Man, all that goes out the window. Whether it's an open lane or tight coverage, he can take advantage of the opportunity and will do so every time it's presented. When you go back and look at old footage of Ant, the mid-range in the three-point shot wasn't as polished as it is now. You can see the creation skills to a certain extent, so the flashes were there, but this here is Ant on a completely different level. Offensively, when it comes to scoring, there's practically no holes in his game. The only thing he needs to improve on offensively is his facilitating. But hold on, that's all been resolved now. Because with LaMelo now in Minnesota easing the playmaking load, Ant doesn't have to worry about being the hub anymore. He gets to just be a full-time scorer. And if this is what the scoring version of him already looks like without a true facilitator next to him, how amazing will he look this season when he can simply focus on putting the ball in the basket? If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss out, and if you made it this far, you've unlocked a special Anthony Edwards card on my website to use in your lineup. All you have to do is head over to hoopmasteryvo.com, go to the rec, and under rec codes type in Ant-Man Buckets. This unlocks him straight into your locker, and you can use him in a game against me, another member on the site, or run a full season. I hope to see you all over there. I've been putting in a lot of work for this site, and I thank you all for your support.